Hello, this is Paul Chek. Welcome back to my video blogs, my seemingly endless series of my heart coming out to you. Today we begin a 6-part series, which I will do my best to keep short to get maximum participation from you, because if you really want to participate in learning the fastest way to health, then there's a little homework involved. And so this is a great way to get some free coaching from Paul Chek, which is not easy to come by, to be honest with you. So the question is, what is the fastest way to health? Well, the truth of it is, from my experience, it's simply honesty. Being honest with yourself. Honest about what? Well, we each have, as some of you have heard me say 1,000 times, but you can never say it enough, 4 doctors within ourselves. We have Dr. Happiness, which is what is our concept of what makes us happy? What is happy making for us? Which should apply to all aspects of our life, to every degree possible, from the way we earn a living, to who we choose as a mate, to the ways we play and relax, to what we read or study. If you're not doing things that are happy making, well, you're doing the opposite. It's not that complicated, really. And sadly, though, in our culture, it takes a fair bit of bravery to follow our hearts, because there's so much social conditioning about keeping up with the Joneses, or largely doing things that are going to make you money, which often make you money, but you end up not being happy. So you spend all your money on doctors and therapists and problems and illnesses and surgeries, and try to figure out how to get out of the rabbit trap without ever really looking at the real issue that is creating the symptoms, therefore not dealing with the etiology or the actual cause. The first thing I want you to orient yourself to is Dr. Happiness. What am I living for, really? What is my love? I always tell my clients, patients, and students, a labor of love is sustainable. Anything else is usually not sustainable. Imagine, for example, having to parent somebody else's child. Most people could not handle parenting somebody else's child, because then it's work. It's not a labor of love, and to raise a child requires love and labor. Dr. Movement, what are my authentic needs for movement with regard to just baseline healthiness, but then again with regard to what my dream is? And we're going to go into each of these doctors, and I'll give you tips on how to look at them for your own inner process as we go along. But essentially, Dr. Movement relates to the movement of your body, your emotions, and your mind, but we're specifically focusing right now on what do I need to keep my body healthy and accomplish my dream effectively, and not constantly be plagued with niggling injuries. Dr. Diet is, what do I need to eat for my unique individual needs to keep myself healthy? And Dr. Quiet is, how do I create adequate rest to regenerate myself, to have a clear mind, and to let my body recover from the stress of exercise, the stress of the kind of work I do, and any of the stresses that we have at the level of body, emotion, mind, or spirit, if you will. Now, interestingly enough, some of you are probably aware, I've been doing this for 32 years. I've coached countless people and had thousands and thousands of students, and lectured to countless thousands of people around the world in my career. And since around 2005, when I took my 4-doctor system public, I've asked a myriad of people this simple question: how many of you are doing what you love to do? How many of you are getting adequate movement for keeping your body healthy versus moving too much or too little? How many of you are eating what you need to eat to keep yourself healthy, i.e. organic foods, and eating right for your individual needs? And how many of you are getting enough sleep? Almost every single patient I've ever worked with, and every person I've ever asked those questions to, knew the answers, yet predominantly admitted that they weren't getting enough sleep, they weren't doing what made them happy, they were getting too much or too little movement, and they weren't eating high quality food, or didn't know how, or didn't pay attention to eating right for the needs, but just kept jumping from diet to diet. When I ask them, why do you keep doing that? The most common answer I get is, I don't know. So before we get to the reason for the I don't know, I'd like to help share a definition of health. Most people in our culture think that a healthy person is someone who has perfect skin, beautiful body, perfectly white teeth that have been stained or cleaned up by the dentist with some magical chemical that makes your teeth look like they're the teeth of a shark or something like that. In other words, artificial means. In other words, our conception of health is really some ideal that often causes people to do very unusual things, but typically are not any real indicator of their health. We are also in an era of what I have coined the era of fit, sick people. And I work with piles of professional athletes and consult to many professional sports teams and work with elite amateur athletes. And I couldn't even begin to tell you how many people I've seen that look fantastic in a mirror, but on the inside are in very, very rough shape. And then there's all the people that try to do it with surgical interventions to make themselves look like they're healthy on the outside, but are often dealing with, shall we say, insecurities about their appearance. So I think we need a more adult, mature definition of health, so I've developed one that I would like to share with you that I think is grounded in reality. Health is an honest willingness to engage your body-mind such that you engage body-mind challenges as an integral process of creating and living your dreams and accomplishing stated goals and objectives. Let's just run through that again and pay close attention that there's nowhere that says you got to have perfect titties, super white teeth, glowing youthful skin, or freedom from even a disease or an ailment, which I'll talk about in a second. Health is an honest willingness to engage your body-mind. Your mind and body reflect each other such that you engage body-mind challenges, the natural challenges of life, as an integral process of creating and living your dreams and accomplishing your stated goals and objectives. Now, when you consider that most people, I mean even doctors in the West, only get about 4 hours of education on nutrition, most of which is corporate nutrition and is garbage. So if you consider that most people don't know much about nutrition, the average person doesn't know much about exercise, they don't know much about diet, most of what they learn is from silly people on the internet or silliness on television. So it's actually pretty normal for people to end up with illnesses and disease processes even when they're doing the things they love to do, because say they love to be an architect. Well, there's nothing in there about the 4 doctors. They might love being a dental hygienist. They might love being a school teacher. But most people find themselves engaging often unexpected challenges, whether it be illness or disease. Now, the healthy person simply engages those challenges as part of the process of their own personal, professional, and spiritual growth and development opportunities. And this is where that concept of a labor of love comes in. If we're not doing what we love to do in life, we often need our illnesses and diseases and chronic fatigue to give us a forced vacation from doing the things we don't love to do. The superficial pursuit of health is also a nice distraction for a lot of people that are not doing the things they love to do, so they become highly narcissistic or overly self-centered and mirror-oriented, which really isn't healthy. Maybe you've been around a person like that. A lot of bodybuilders, unfortunately, are stuck in that trap. So we really want to be aware of a more adult definition of health, and that's part of what I do with these blogs for, is to share some basics with people so that they can get inspired to be honest about their health and have some, sound, logical concepts to work with. Now, of all the people that I've worked with over the years and questioned and had do my 4-doctor questionnaires and conferences, when I ask you, the people, how many of you are not doing what you love to do, aren't moving adequately, aren't eating adequately, or aren't resting adequately, which most of them are on all 4 of those, I'd say probably 85% of the hands in the audience or more go up every time. So when I say to them, why do you keep doing these things when you know it's not helping you, it's not getting you where you want to go? The most common answer I get is, I don't know. Now, when someone says, I don't know, it usually indicates a lack of awareness. So to help you understand why people keep doing these things over and over again, which is what I call an addiction. I define an addiction as any repeated behavior that does not produce the results you want. An addiction, in Paul Chek's model, is any repeated behavior that does not produce the results you want. So if you find out you're gluten intolerant and your therapist or coach tells you need to cut gluten out of your diet, but you keep eating it anyhow, and I ask you, why do you keep doing that? And you say, I don't know. It usually means that you're not conscious of the choice you're making, or that your gluten is the most happy-making thing in your life. So it's hard to get someone off sugar, coffee, donuts, drugs, etc., if that's the most exciting thing in their life, because ultimately it becomes their surrogate dream, sadly enough. So when it comes to helping people understand why it is they keep doing the things over and over again that aren't serving them to be healthy or to live their dream, I've identified through my own work that most people largely in our culture operate only on one of the 4 qualities of consciousness identified by Carl Jung quite some time ago, and that is thinking. Thinking has a subdominance called feeling, and then we have sensation and intuition. In my system, I break thinking and sensation into the masculine expression, feeling and intuition into the feminine expression. So if a person is dominantly thinking about things but not feeling, or not paying attention to their body, remember, you don't get obese overnight, you don't get a disease overnight. By the time you get cancer, you've been working at it for a good 10 plus years. It takes quite a while to get obese. So people are obviously not paying attention to what their senses are telling them, or even what the mirror is telling them, and they just keep on doing this Groundhog Day thing, which would fall into an addiction, a repeated behavior that doesn't get the results you want. I never met anybody that wanted to be obese or be sick. So we have to consciously engage these 4 functions. So what I'm going to do is outline them for you, so when you're answering your own questions about, am I doing what I love to do, getting enough movement, eating right, and resting enough, you can look at them through the eyes of each of the 4 functions of consciousness. So sensation shows you what is. That's your 5 senses. That's the information your nervous system gathers. So if you touch something that's sharp, you know it is sharp. If it's hot, it's hot. If it's cold, it's cold. If it's rough, it's rough. If it's smooth, it's smooth. So it's telling you what is. If you feel constipated, your sensory system's telling you what is. Thinking is what recognizes meaning or tries to create meaning. So when people, for example, keep eating gluten or sugar when they know it's not helping them, at some level of their unconscious, it produces meaning for them, and the meaning often is, I feel happy, or I feel like I'm getting a break from the misery of my choices when I eat that stuff. So there's where thinking gets in trouble. And also we have a very information addicted culture, and what that results in is people believing what they read or see on television or listen to on podcasts without realizing a lot of that stuff is not well thought out, or may be applicable to the person giving the podcast, but not to you. So thinking is where our culture is very, very trapped, and a lot of that comes from our intellectually driven education systems. Feeling, the feminine quality, tells us what our values are. So we react when our values are either supported or trespassed. For example, if you're in line at the supermarket, you've been waiting in 10 minutes to check out, and someone cuts in front of you, you're likely to get irritated or angry, because underneath that is the value that in our culture we wait in line and we get to go when it's our turn. So if someone cuts in front of you, you're likely to feel that that value has been trespassed, and that triggers a emotional reaction. If you're in a relationship with someone, for example, if you're a woman and you feel loved when your partner comes home for dinner on time and they don't show up, you probably are going to get irritated and after a while say, I'm not cooking for you anymore, because you're killing the joy of the meal. You're eating way late and you're not eating with us. There's a value trespass that triggers feelings. But we also have feelings and emotions from our body. If our biochemistry is not balanced, if we're exhausted, if we're hurting, that triggers emotions, which is related to the feeling function. So when you're looking at your 4 doctors, you want to ask yourself, what is my value about rest? What is my value about happiness? What is my value about movement? What is my value about diet? And if your values haven't gotten you to the place of genuine health, then your values need to be reevaluated relative to your currently stated dream, goal, or objective. Then we have intuition. Intuition is what points to possibilities beyond the immediate facts that you can gain from sensation and thinking. Or your values. By the way, most people's values are not conscious. They only recognize their value when somebody trespasses it. So what we want to do is realize that to use intuition effectively requires that you be brave enough to stop thinking, that you suspend judgment based on values, that you get calm enough that you're not overwhelmed by your sensory system, and you open yourself to what you can receive after stating the question. I wonder what the best way to get myself healthy is. I've tried all these diets or exercise programs and therapists and it's not working. Oftentimes our soul guides us into these, shall we say, blind alleys to force us to grow ourselves so that we learn to pay more attention or have a higher level of awareness. And intuition is one of the most powerful tools that we have, but unfortunately, how to use it is rarely ever taught. So this is the introduction to the fastest way to health, which is honesty. My hope is that you're inspired to answer the questions I've shared in this video blog, and then get ready for the next one. I'm going to start with Dr. Happiness, and I'm going to work my way around to Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and then we'll do a closing blog on integrating everything together. Now, for those of you that want some support, my multimedia ebook, The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, How to Get Healthy Now, is available at chekinstitute.com, which is very, very helpful. It gives you directions on how to define what is happy making for you, how to establish your own core values, shows you lots of useful techniques like how to breathe properly, which is a big problem for a lot of people, how to use zone exercises or breathing and movement to cultivate life force energy, and more. My book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, has a series of questionnaires that evaluates your level of stress in key biological systems and your overall level of stress perception, and then guides you to making the changes in each of those systems to balance your body, and teaches you how to do zone exercises which cultivate life force energy that are the right exercises for each of the systems you score high on. And it's a very complete system. 1,000 people could do the book and get 1,000 different responses because it's designed for the individual and their specific needs. And then if you want more help, you can go to chekinstitute.com and look into our Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 program, which integrates the 4 doctors, the How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy book, takes you in steps, shows you how to use that information, adds more information to it, highly practical, and you can choose to work with an instructor who guides you through and answers your questions. And if you get excited about what you learn and how you feel after applying that material, after a few months, you may want to become a holistic lifestyle coach professionally, and that's what Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 2 is designed to do. It's an intensive 5-day training that teaches you how to properly assess and coach people so that they can look and feel their best and live their dreams. So thanks for joining me today. I'm Paul Chek. I'll look forward to sharing with you in part 2 of our 6-part series.